Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome back into another edition of Prime Sports World. Oh, hold on a second. I forgot to change that. How embarrassing. First graphic, already a mistake. But week 4 recap. We're going to do our week 5 predictions as well for the XFL, as we are almost halfway through the season already, as there's 10 weeks in the XFL season. This is Prime Sports World. This is Prime Sports World. We go live basically every single day, so please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. We continue to give you guys great content. TJ's usually joining me. He has school stuff to do today, so I'm going to ride solo on the XFL show. Continue hanging out with us. I've also shared the streaming platforms, so if you want to check us out, if you do happen to miss us live, we cover the NFL, we cover the XFL, we cover wrestling, we cover college football, college basketball, including tomorrow. Izzy's going to be doing his big bracket challenge show. You don't want to miss that content. Another good week in the XFL. Some entertaining games. Thank you, Aunt Judy, for liking the podcast. I appreciate and love you. Also, it was my birthday yesterday, so if you want to all give me a shout out and wish me happy birthday on the podcast, I would greatly appreciate it. Also, if you can like, share, and subscribe as a little birthday present for me, I would greatly appreciate that as well. But let's get into the XFL. And one of my minor gripes I have with the XFL so far is I might be a super minority here when it comes to this particular issue. I don't need to hear the commentators talking about the gambling stuff every play, talking about the over-under, talking about the spread. I straight up just I don't really care about the gambling aspect. I know a lot of people do gamble on sports and they do gamble on the XFL, but I don't think the commentators should be pushing that. Based on the people that have problems with gambling and the way it works. Also, if you have noticed on ESPN.com, if you go to check any of their games, they now all have full box scores. And I'm not saying that I was responsible for getting those box scores on ESPN.com, but I'm sure I had something to do with it. So give myself a pat on the back as I complained about it every single episode every week. And finally, after 4 weeks, we finally got box scores for every single game. Let's jump right into the content. First game, we had the Roughnecks going into Orlando and beating down the Orlando Guardians 44-16. Houston put up 20 points in the first quarter, and it basically was all she wrote. They scored a touchdown every quarter, including 2 in the fourth quarter. The Guardians scored in the second and the third. This was a tough game for the Guardians for sure. Paxton Lynch, 18 of 30, 267 yards and 2 touchdowns. Devin Darrington, leading rusher, 12 for 40. Carlston Rambo, leading receiver for this team, 2 catches for 89 yards and a touchdown. Jalen Smith also had a touchdown for the Guardians, but this was really all Roughnecks from beginning to end. Brandon Silvers continues probably being the best quarterback so far in the XFL, 24 of 30, 239 yards and 3 touchdowns. And their wide receiver also threw a touchdown, 49-yard bomb in this game as well. Travell Harris, 3 catches for 83 yards, 2 touchdowns. Deontay Burton, 1 touchdown, and Kirkland also had a receiving touchdown on his own. Dijon Lee also had 2 rushing touchdowns this game, as this was a straight beatdown from wire to wire for the Roughnecks, as they are probably, depending on what your opinion is on the defenders, the best team in the XFL. They scored early, they scored often. They scored early and often, including 3 touchdowns in the first quarter. They scored a touchdown in the second quarter. They scored a touchdown in the third. And they scored 2 more touchdowns in the fourth quarter, and a rather easily defeating the Orlando Guardians. They really got to figure out what they're doing at quarterback. Paxton Lynch shows some flashes here where he threw 2 touchdowns in this game. It just hasn't been consistent enough. Also, ESPN is having their videos seem to be auto playing all the time. So every time I click through a different video, I think this is just a matter of the Roughnecks are very good. Orlando Guardians still have a lot of questions, especially at the quarterback position, and they're just not good enough on offense to really compete with the other teams in the XFL right now. Moving on from that game, let's talk about the other game that was on Saturday. This game had a 10 p.m. kickoff. As the Brahmas of San Antonio go into Seattle and they fall 15-6, as this was another struggle game for Jack Cohen, as he was very inaccurate in this game as well as he has been in a lot of the games actually so far this season. Jack Cohen, 20 of 39, 189 yards. He was their leading rusher, but he only had 9 yards rushing for the entire game. Probably not going to get it done if you want to win an XFL game. And Tahami is their leading receiver, 3 catches, 54 yards. They only scored 2 field goals in this game and did not score a touchdown. This offense looked pretty inept for a majority of the game. But on the Seattle side, Ben DiNucci, 28 of 41, 1 touchdown and 1 pick. Morgan Ellison, leading rusher, also punched in a touchdown on the ground. And Jacour Pearson had a solid game here, 8 catches for 76 yards. Josh Gordon, 5 for 57, and Juwan Green caught the lone receiving touchdown for the Seattle Sea Dragons as they go on to win this game. And even though neither team was particularly excellent on offense in this game, as we only had 300 yards for the Seattle Sea Dragons and only 191 for the Brahmas. Just not going to get it done. Jack Cohen has been wildly inconsistent at quarterback. He was solid in the game that they won, but as a whole, you're probably going to want to look for some better quarterback play. I just don't think he's been able to get it done there for the San Antonio Brahmas. Unfortunate to see there, actually. So, bummer. Moving on to Sunday afternoon, as we had 2 games on Sunday. I love the doubleheaders on Sunday and Saturday. Makes for good football watching. And this was the game that I was most anticipating watching. It's the Arlington Renegades going into St. Louis and taking on the Battlehawks. And one thing that stood out for me in this game specifically was the crowd in this game. They had 38,000 people in the stands for this game. 38,000 fans in the stadium. The most fans in a single XFL game so far, either this season or 2 years ago when they first tried to bring this back. And obviously, because of COVID, they were unable to be successful. But this is a game, yes, St. Louis won it from wire to wire. They got a field goal in the first quarter. They punched an 8 in the second quarter. They got 6 and 7. The Arlington Renegades was really never able to get it going. Kyle Sloter really struggled in this game. 23 of 39, 205 yards, 3 interceptions. I know they benched the kid from Ball State for this kid. Kyle Sloter, actually, he was like at the UCFL last season. I think he was one of the better players in the USFL. So it's sad to see him kind of struggle like this. I know he got his first game win last week, but it was not against a good football team. So we'll figure out what ends up happening there. Devon Smith had a rushing touchdown. Caleb Vander Esch, leading receiver for the Arlington Renegades, 2 catches for 48 yards. And then on the St. Louis Battlehawks side of this, AJ McCarron, 20 of 27, very efficient, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Brian Hill, the former Cincinnati Bengal, 18 carries for 89 yards and a touchdown. And Darius Shepard and Akeem Butler all had receiving touchdowns for this game as they dominate. And the fans there really showed up for this St. Louis Battlehawks team, setting up a very intriguing matchup next week for them and the Defenders. That game's in St. Louis as well. I expect that crowd to be wild. I expect that crowd to be loud. I expect that crowd to be everything there was in this game and more. Because this is, St. Louis, they haven't had football. I think it was like 1,000 something days since they've had a football game in St. Louis. And these fans were hungry. These fans came out and showed up big time. Not a whole lot to talk about when it comes to the actual play because St. Louis just won so easily. The Renegades had 240 total yards of offense, 324 for the St. Louis Battlehawks. The 4 turnovers for Arlington is really what kind of derailed any kind of success for them. And they basically had to abandon the running game early in this game as they, only had 49 yards rushing in this game up to the 110 for the Battlehawks. But yeah, I think you got to see, hopefully get better play out of Kyle Sloter going forward. But this Battlehawks team is for real. So to the final game on Sunday, the nightcap, we had the DC Defenders. Man, these ads on ESPN.com are really driving me crazy. The DC Defenders win that game 32-18 over the Las Vegas Vipers. As their quarterback play really struggled in this game too. Luis Perez did turn it on a little bit as towards the end of the game as Brett Hundley got benched in the first quarter. And Luis Perez came in 23 of 32, 283 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Brent Hundley 4 of 5. They also fumbled the opening snap that went back for a touchdown for the DC Defenders. This is probably the best defense in the XFL currently. And then John Lovett, seven carries for 39 yards. Jeff Badditt, leading receiver, 7 catches for 80. Sweeting had both receiving touchdowns for the Vipers. On the DC side of this, that double-headed monster they have at quarterback is really proving to be very, very effective. Both these guys really efficient. As they ran the ball for 173 yards. Derek King had 2 rushing touchdowns. Jordan Tiamo had 14 carries for 19 yards and 177 yards. He was also their leading receiver, 89 yards on the ground. Derek King threw 2 passes, one of them being a long touchdown for like 37 yards. It was just a straight bomb. Like it was a 4th down conversion, and the guy just got open. They went for the house. And Chris Blair, leading receiver for the DC Defenders, 4 catches for 84 yards. But Vegas, it didn't really score. They had 2 field goals in the first half, and they didn't really put another point up until the 4th quarter. And by then, it was already too late. Defenders already up 32 to 18. Luis Perez throws an interception that basically sealed this game. And offense just never was able to get clicking. And when they did kind of find some flow and kind of find some rhythm, the game was just over at that point. It was too late. So, but yeah, thank you very much for checking us out. That's been our week 5 recap. Let me know what you thought about so far the play in the XFL. I think it's been better than I had anticipated when I was originally, I was always going to watch the XFL, but I think the play, especially at the quarterback position, has been better than I had originally anticipated. So I'm really excited about that. There are some teams that really need to figure it out and get it together. The Vipers and the Guardians specifically, and the Brahmas also, their quarterback play hasn't been specifically stellar as well. But the Vipers, you had a tough break for them. I mean, 3 of their 4 games, they've had the lead going into halftime, and they've ended up losing all 4 of those games. So all 3 of those games, and then they lose here to Defenders, a game they did not have the lead at halftime. But that kind of that miscalculations of the play clock towards the end of the first half for the Vegas Vipers, where they were trying to go in for the touchdown. Luis Perez gets stopped at the goal line. And because of the rule is the same rule as the NFL, if they have to go back and do a review and they reverse the call, it results in a 10-second runoff. But if the Vipers could have taken the play right before that, they could have taken an offsides penalty and gotten a first down, right? And then gotten that first down and kept the timeout in their pocket. So if that play had been, which was basically, it was a 5-yard gain anyways. So if Rod Woodson had accepted the penalty on the play before that resulted in the first down, they would have had a timeout, and they could have used it here to get another shot at that end zone or even kick a field goal. Rod Woodson was real pissed off at the referees about the way that went down, but it was his fault. If you just accept that penalty, you keep the timeout in your back pocket, you have a timeout for this situation in the replay booth, where you can get another play off and maybe kick the field goal, maybe get a touchdown and go into halftime with a little bit of momentum. We're talking about 14-9 as opposed to 14-6 at halftime. You get the opening kickoff in the next half, gets fumbled by the Defenders. You don't even get a point out of that. You get 0 points out of that drive. That's like just fumbled opportunity after fumble opportunity. You got to really kind of clean that stuff up. But overall, week 4 of the XFL gave some good matchups, good games, and we're at almost the halfway point here of the XFL season as we're talking about week number 5 here in a second. But before we close the book on week number 4, we gotta give out our game balls. If TJ was here, he'd be giving his game ball out too. But I'm gonna give my game ball to the fans at that St. Louis Battlehawks game in St. Louis. Way to show out for your team. Way to show out and prove the XFL is important. It does matter. 38,000 people in that stadium to root for the St. Louis Battlehawks. I love to see it. I hope they keep it up. I imagine that attendance will be even higher this game against the Defenders as they look to basically tie them up in the stats. And those are the 2 best teams in that division by far. Fans in St. Louis. Also, the fans in DC with the beer snake and all that other stuff, I think they need to stop throwing the lemons. But overall, that's been a really good experience over there in DC and St. Louis. So let's get into the next week, week number 5. We got Thursday night football. We got the Roughnecks going up against the Sea Dragons of Seattle, and Ben DiNucci, leading passer in the XFL. But this game also starts at 10:30 at night on a Thursday, which is just wild. I'm not sure who's staying up to watch that game on a Thursday night, as people have work on Friday night. I just think that's maybe a slight misstep there by the XFL. But I didn't realize they played in the same they played in the exact same stadium that Seattle plays in, the Seahawks. I did not realize that. With that being said, though, I think Houston is leaps and bounds just better than Seattle. I'll take the Roughnecks to win that game fairly easily on the road. I don't think anyone's is as good as the Roughnecks. They're on both sides of the football, offense and defensively. They're built to go. Then we got the DC Defenders going into St. Louis on Saturday night. This game kicks off at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And if the fan presence was anything to go off of the last week against the Renegade Arlington Renegades there for the St. Louis Battlehawks, I think the stadium, the record for fans in the stadium will get broken during this game, and we will have St. Louis going up big against the Defenders and tie up that top that division there in the North Division. Give me the Battlehawks to win that game on the road. Also look for AJ McCarron, have an excellent game. And then the battles of the defeated. After 4 weeks, neither of these two teams have won a game. And so one of them is going to get off the schneid. We got the Orlando Guardians going into Las Vegas and playing the Vegas Vipers. Las Vegas, even though they've lost all 4 of their games, in 3 of those games, they've had the lead at halftime, as I mentioned earlier in the show. And they just went up against the Defenders team this week that's just frankly better than them. With that being said, I'm taking Vegas to win this game. I just don't trust Orlando on offense, especially whatever's going to be happening at the quarterback position. Give me Vegas. And then finally, Sunday Night Football. This game kicks off at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We got 2 teams in Texas going at it. We got the Arlington Renegades going into San Antonio, taking on the Brahmas. Both these teams coming off taking L's in week number 4. But the Brahmas have actually been the better offensive team, as they've scored 64 points to the Renegades 57 points. Even though the quarterback play hasn't been stellar on Eagles' side, I will say I think Kyle Slaughter has played better than Jack Cohen, even though the sample size is smaller for Slaughter. I will take the Arlington Renegades to win that game. They will put down the San Antonio Brahmas in their home stadium. They're playing at the Alamo Dome. That's pretty cool in San Antonio, Texas there. But yeah, let me know what you think. Who do you think is going to win these games on Sunday, Thursday, and Saturday and Sunday? So recapping, I got the Roughnecks, I got the Battlehawks, I got the Vipers, and I got the Renegades winning in week number 5. Let me know what you think about who's going to win some games in the XFL this upcoming week. And thank you very much for joining us. This has been our 2023 XFL season week 4 recap and week 5 predictions. I'm your host, David On Point Huffman. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. We give you content every single day, so continue checking that out. Tomorrow is going to be Izzy's big college basketball show, so you don't want to miss that content. Also on Wednesday, we're going to be bringing back the crossover, talking about some basketball stuff going on with John Morant and some playoff push stuff. So don't want to miss that content. We keep bringing it to you every single day. And then our next mock draft will come out on Thursday as we react to the Chicago Bears trade and what's going on in free agency. That's all coming to you guys. So just keep an eye out for all that content. Again, I'm David Huffman, and here at Prime Sports World, we bring the heat. Take it easy. Be safe.